Already a little bit of deja vu here in this offseason for the MLB. It seems like just this time last year and maybe a little bit down the future, we were talking about Yoshinobu Yamamoto coming over from Japan and taking the league by storm and signing the biggest pitching contract that we've seen in the majors. We now have something a little bit similar again, these guys were generational coming out of the MPB, and this is exactly what Roki Sasaki is expected to be in the major leagues. And we now know Roki Sasaki will be posted for the 2025 season. So we're going to talk about his potential suitors today. And before we do that, just got some clips of Sasaki's start against Mexico in the World Baseball Classic from 2023. I believe he was either 21 or 22 years old in this. I don't remember what age in particular, but I know he is around 23 now. And this is a very big deal for every major league club looking to buy in on a really generational level pitcher. A guy that we have not seen the likes of somebody like this in a long time. I'd say even this guy's even better than Yamamoto coming out of Japan. That's kind of been the, I guess, general consensus with Roki Sasaki. But we'll be talking about his potential suitors here on the show today, here on Back to the Dugout. So welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Back to the Dugout on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. Didn't have a show yesterday on Monday, was out of town and couldn't get back in time for the showtime, but was able to push that to a show today, as I alluded to a little bit last week on Thursday's show. So only one day in between this show and next show, so we will still have a Thursday show as we normally do, but just kind of like a special like Tuesday update, which we sometimes will do here if we can't get a show in the Monday slot. So hopefully that wasn't too much of an inconvenience for people who tend to watch this show on a more consistent basis. And if not, I mean, great, but we still get to update everybody on the baseball news throughout the offseason on this Tuesday. So I'm excited to at least be doing that for you guys today. So we got Roki Sasaki news, and then we have to talk about the award finalists who just came out throughout, next week and the week after. We'll be finding out who wins these awards. Going to talk about those guys and a little bit about their seasons. I mean, it's pretty clear who's going to win a lot of these, but we'll still talk about that a little bit, I'm assuming, probably halfway through the show. And then moving on down, I mean, there's more offseason news in terms of, little signings here and there. And we got Juan Soto updates as well as meetings for him are about to get underway. So a lot to talk about today, as there has really been not a lot of shortage of offseason news, I will say. There's also Arizona Fall League stuff we could talk about. So there is a lot of things on the radar that, we just have a chance to talk about today. So exciting stuff. But most exciting of all of these is the Roki Sasaki news, which if you've watched this clip a few times through already, you could see that he was facing some really solid major league hitters here in this Team Mexico, guys like Randy Arozarena, Joey Meneses, and among other names, Alex Verdugo. This is not the easiest lineup to face, and Sasaki did pretty well, other than a 3-run homer against him from Luis Urias. So Sasaki has experience against these major league talented players. He obviously excels in the NPB, and he will now be posted coming in to the MLB in 2025. So interesting stuff there. But looking at his player profile, he is currently, I believe, age 23, if that's correct. I don't want to make sure I'm missing his age, right? But I know he was 21 when he played in the WBC. So he should be 23 years old now. He's been in the MPB for quite a long time now, playing with the Chivo Lotte Marines. He's pitched a perfect game on April 10th, 2022, to just tell you how elite this guy's stuff is. That's pretty much the bottom line with Sasaki, is he is just elite. His fastball velo dipped a tad in 2024. It sat around an average of 96.5 miles per hour. But still, everything is elite with Roki Sasaki. He's got a splitter that sits almost at 89 miles an hour. It seems like a staple for a lot of Japanese pitchers. They come out with a splitter, like some kind of fork ball, as we saw from Kodai Senga coming out of Japan. These guys have incredible off-speed stuff, and that does not stop with Roki Sasaki. He's just incredible at getting strikeouts and whiffs. It's just something he's always been really good at. I expect that to translate really well to the majors, and his spin rate is just unreal. So, I mean, that should really be something that translates very well. I don't think he'll have much of an adjusting period, and I think that's why as a 23-year-old, this guy is going to be somebody that I believe every team will try and make some kind of an offer for. But not every team is obviously going to be taken seriously. I'm sure Roki Sasaki is not going to sign with the Colorado Rockies, even if they offer him the most money. So let's get into the potential suitors here, because that's, I think, what a lot of people are here for. But you kind of could just see how good Roki Sasaki's stuff is. That wasn't him at his best, I would even say. And he was 2 years younger than he is now. So really interesting stuff there. If you wanted to watch more Roki Sasaki clips, there's obviously, endless amounts of clips from, his time at the MPB, or even just these highlights from the WBC, even when he started against Czech Republic. So interesting stuff with Roki Sasaki is really all I can say. I know I've been saying it a lot, but that's what I feel like with these Japanese exports. They're just really, really interesting to take a look at. Their game is just really complete, and I really enjoy watching these guys pitch. So we're going to take a look at some potential suitors now. And starting off, I feel like it's really only right that it's the LA Dodgers. And again, I'm going to throw their depth chart here, their projected depth chart from Fangraphs for their 2024 rotation, or their 2025 rotation, I should say. And the move just makes complete sense. And I don't know if I'll spend too much time talking about why the Dodgers makes a lot of sense as a potential suitor, because let's be honest, that's just not fun for everybody else in the league. If he goes to the Dodgers, this makes baseball a little less fun for everybody. Shohei and Yoshinobu Yamamoto are going to be lobbying hard for Sasaki to sign with the Dodgers. And in their first season together, there's no reason why Sasaki shouldn't want to sign here. They won a World Series their first season together. That sets this standard of just Japanese excellence in the major leagues, where these guys can come over from Japan, sign for a team like the Dodgers, and just play championship level baseball. That's, the pedigree of baseball they want to play. These are guys that are coming, far away from home to play a sport. And, if they're going to come here, I'm sure they're above everything going to want to win championships. And that's what they know they can get now if they're playing with Shohei and Yoshi. They know that they're going to be able to do that, and they're going to be around some familiar faces. So a lot of chemistry can be in that rotation and in that clubhouse if you throw in a guy like Roki Sasaki. And I think for the Dodgers, that's amazing. For everyone else, that's not so great. But, when you again, you just come to the U.S., you want to win championships, and right now there's really no better option for Yamamoto than honestly going to this Dodgers rotation. And looking at it, yes, there are already a lot of right-handers, and we've talked about it. How many injuries this team is probably going to have. It's probably going to happen. You obviously don't want to wish injuries against any team, and that's not what we're doing here. But, just looking at the injury history, there's not much to me to at least think that there won't be at least one injury within this rotation every single season. Dustin May and Bobby Miller have been question marks already in their young careers. Glass now has injury history. Otani obviously coming off of that injury. Yamamoto's on the 60-day IL this season. So signing Roki Sasaki would give them a lot of depth here. Not necessarily depth that they need, but really, really strong depth, obviously, when you're throwing in one of the most elite pitchers really in the world at this point. That's an interesting thing to think about. But, it's obviously a very packed rotation with 6 guys. But I think, if the Dodgers are signing Roki Sasaki, you're obviously willing to take out one of these 3 bottom guys here, I would say. May and Miller, unfortunately, would be the odd man out. And you'd probably throw Roki Sasaki in there behind Tony Gonsolin, just somebody who's an all-star, I believe, if not last year, a couple years ago. Not this past season, but the season before. I think that's worth at least hanging on to Gonsolin for a little bit. He is 30, so, he still has a little bit of his prime left, you would think. You also don't want to give up on these 2 guys. So I don't know where the Dodgers will necessarily do. We'll see. I think they're definitely in play here as the biggest potential suitor. That's just, having the already 2 biggest Japanese players in the world. I feel like that is just something that makes sense and doesn't really need much said other than that. But moving on, second team that I think is in play for Roki Sasaki in his first ever, I guess, not free agency, but his signing to the MLB. I think that's the San Diego Padres. I think they are an amazing fit for Sasaki. This is a team that, has Yu Darvish on it, and one of the most famous Japanese pitchers probably of all time. This is a guy who could really, really influence Roki Sasaki in just the best possible way. This is a guy who can influence his development, have a really, really solid just influence on this guy's career. Sasaki, I'm sure, looks up to Yu Darvish a lot. They have a prior relationship, and for that, I really think that Yu Darvish can come in and get him to go to the Padres over over a team like the LA Dodgers. I think that, you also combine this thought that maybe some Japanese players would like to go somewhere where there isn't already a Japanese star so they could grow not only their own personal brand, but just the Japanese part of the game in general. Obviously, while you can make the same argument that putting a guy into a group of already elite Japanese talent can only grow the game further. You alienate a lot of fans when they're all on the same team. So I think that, while that's not really a thought for Sasaki when he's signing, I think Darvish could definitely be the draw that they needed to get him there over a place like uh, LA. But I don't know. I feel like Darvish has probably as big of a pull as both of those two guys. I don't really know. I think, when we see the championships coming in from LA, it's a bit tough to argue that. So I don't know. I mean, San Diego's looking to be competitive for a very long time. And, we look at their rotation, it's obviously good. I mean, these are guys that, besides Darvish, are not getting very up there in age. And I think that the back of the rotation just isn't solid enough. You got Randy Vasquez, Matt Waldron, and Vasquez can turn into something pretty good. When he was with New York, I really had that hope that he would blossom into a really solid starting pitcher, but I just don't see that happening within San Diego. And I think their best course of action here is to put all their eggs in this Roki Sasaki basket. This is a team that I thought at one time could probably re-sign Blake Snell, and I now really started to like the idea of Blake Snell going to the Red Sox, funny enough, but I just don't think this back end of the rotation is strong enough. And you looked at it last year, this was a really strong rotation, and throwing Sasaki in it would really just give it that strength right back. And if they add him, they're really just one of the best teams in baseball, if not one of the best teams in baseball already. And that was my next point. Was Roki's favorite player growing up was Masahiro Tanaka. He already does have that prior relationship with Darvish, so I feel like that might have a little more sway on him than just having Tanaka as his favorite player would. But we're going to talk about the Yankees here as a potential suitor in a second, because pretty sure everybody could probably guess that they are probably going to be in on this more than most teams. But that's not the third team that I think has the most, or I guess the biggest chance of signing Sasaki. That would be the New York Mets, who I feel like are going to make a bigger play than anybody to try and get this guy, especially, with all the news about Juan Soto circling and possibly also re-signing Pete Alonso with them. Steve Cohen's trying to make a really big splash, and bringing in Sasaki to pair with Kodai Senga would be so cool for the Mets to see. And just looking at their depth chart, their projected starting rotation for next season, you obviously see Senga there as the one. So he would be really just learning the major leagues under the starting pitcher number one for the New York Mets. Now, I don't think he will be that starting pitcher number one when the season starts, but he obviously has the chance to be that if they don't sign another pitcher. And I mean, other than that, this rotation doesn't jump out at me at all. I mean, David Peterson's solid. We talked about Blackburn a little bit on the show, I think last week, the fact that he used to be an all-star and that, you can maybe get that out of him. We've seen, worse pitchers come to the Mets and actually do really well. So I wouldn't, doubt him at 30 years old necessarily being washed at this point. Tyler McGill, Jose Buto, all guys that I think could put together solid outings. I just don't trust them to really be solid enough pitchers at the back end of the rotation. So again, not really a ton of rotational depth here with the Mets, and I think Sasaki could fill in that hole perfectly. I think that he would be a really good pairing with Kodai Senga. Obviously, these guys have pretty similar stuff, other than the off speed, the ghost fork and Roki splitter. These guys have great mechanics, great stuff, and I think that they would pair really, really well together on the Mets. Now, I don't really know if he would rather go to the Mets over a place like the Padres and the Dodgers. I just think that if he's signing anywhere in the city, I think he's going to be signing with the Yankees. But he does have that draw of Kodai Senga being there, and I'm sure he's going to be lobbying for him. And obviously, Cohen's going to be doing his biggest part to try and get him there. But now we can get into the fourth potential suitor, which I have being the New York Yankees. And, Yankee fans will get their hopes up for Sasaki to sign, and then he'll just end up signing somewhere else. Realistically, the Yankees probably have not even a top 5 chance of landing Sasaki, but because Tanaka was his favorite player growing up, I'm kind of just hanging on to hope. Tanaka is just obviously was one of the best pitchers coming out of Japan that we saw get posted and signed by the Yankees. So I feel like, you know, Sasaki growing up and watching Tanaka go through that, watching him perform for the Yankees, I feel like there's part of Sasaki that maybe wants to be on that same stage at Yankee Stadium, and he's seen that they can obviously get there. And I'm sure he saw that a big part that was missing from that Yankees team was starting pitching. He's the answer there. Uh, I'm sure the Yankees would love to go out and sign Sasaki for a lot cheaper than what they would have to give a guy like even Walker Bueller. So I think the Yankees are going to be in play here. We've seen, I believe, Hal was at, I think that he was at Yamamoto's games, but I'm not positive if he was at Sasaki's games. But we know that the Yankees are very in on Japanese pitching. That's been the case pretty much for decades. So they've signed notable Japanese players, like I already mentioned, Tanaka, Hideki Matsui, obviously winning World Series MVP in 2009 is a very commonly thought of thing when you're thinking of Japanese exports in the major leagues. So the Yankees already have that just historical culture with baseball, the winning culture with baseball, and they also have the Japanese history to pair along with it. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Sasaki want to maybe entertain the Yankees a little bit. I would be very surprised to see Sasaki sign with them over a team like LA or San Diego, though. Even, I actually wouldn't be surprised to see him sign with the Mets over the Yankees, but I would definitely think that has way less of a possibility than a team like the Padres or even, the Dodgers, obviously, which I would say I feel like everybody's leaning towards he's going to the Dodgers, but still two other teams that I think will be in play for Sasaki to the end. And at 5, I think it's the Giants. I haven't honestly looked into this on my own to see if the Giants would be in on Roki Sasaki. I kind of just assume this is a team that really does well in making splashes in the international market. We saw them go out and sign Jung Ho Lee from Korea. They're looking like the favorites right now to re-sign, or not re-sign, but to sign Ha-Sung Kim. And they've even been talking to another Korean export in Hae-Sung Kim. So a lot of international prospects coming out, going to the Giants, I believe, or that could have been the Mariners talking about Kim. I might be mixing up my out west teams there. But either way, the Giants obviously have a very big presence when thinking of the Asian Pacific market of baseball, and just a massive interest in Korean baseball already. So, I mean, Japanese baseball only makes sense there as well. I could see Sasaki really just wanting to go to a team like the Giants because, I mean, let's look at their rotation, but they don't really have the best rotation in the world once you get past like even their one. Like, I mean, Logan Webb's solid as a one, but other than that, a lot of question marks here in the rotation, and Sasaki is definitely not a question mark there. That would give you a Kyle Harrison aged player who plays like Logan Webb, pretty much. So I think that would be a really good fit for him. I think he'd be very valued there. He would be their guy right away, and if that's something he's interested in, then Sasaki should definitely look to do that because he would for sure be the one as soon as he came over to San Francisco, and it's not looking like they're going to re-sign Blake Snell. So if they don't, then we could possibly see the Giants make a play for Roki Sasaki here. But the last team that I think could be a potential suitor would be the Toronto Blue Jays. And I just think they're going to be in on all these big players this offseason. We saw that they were going to get in on Juan Soto. I don't seriously think that there's a shot that the Blue Jays sign Juan Soto, but they could have a shot at a guy like Roki Sasaki. Looking at their rotation, Kevin Gausman's their 1. Jose Barrios is the 2. Bowden Francis looked really solid in the second half. He's their 3. Chris Bassett, Yariel Rodriguez. It's just not great. They really need like a solid 1. And losing Yusoi Kikuchi obviously hurt. He's doing a lot better now. I just don't really see Sasaki seriously entertaining a Canadian market out of all of the teams. I think he would rather stay somewhere a little bit closer to Japan if he's signing anywhere at all, which is why I think also the New York teams just have less of a chance. But just looking at the rotation, I mean, all righties, they don't necessarily need another right-handed arm, but they need a solid 1, and that's exactly what Roki Sasaki is. So, I mean, if they want to sign a 1, that's a really good opportunity to sign one. However, I just think he's not going to want to sign there over another team. I really don't. If any Blue Jays fans are watching and have any real thought that you could land Roki Sasaki, let me know. That would be an interesting topic of debate. But I feel like they're just a team like that just is involved, kind of just in the outside grand scheme of things. They're not really massive players, but we will see uh, very soon whether or not they make a bigger play for Roki Sasaki. So those were like the six that I came up with. I think the Orioles could probably be in play too. They need a pitcher if they're not going out and re-signing Corbin Burns. So this could be really interesting. Nonetheless, I think he will end up signing with the Dodgers. I think just this pipeline of Japan uh, pitching prospects to the Dodgers is just something that is too good to pass up when you see the championship pedigree they've already developed there. And I can't blame them at all. It's honestly really fun to watch, despite it being honestly not that fun for the rest of the league. So I'm excited to watch Sasaki pitch at the next level, do what he did at the World Baseball Classic, hopefully to a even larger extent. And hopefully we can see Sasaki have a very long and successful career, one that we're already kind of seeing starting with Yoshinobu Yamamoto. So very interesting first segment here on Back to the Dugout with Roki Sasaki, heading over to the major leagues and being posted. But now we get to talk about something more excited internally within the league, and we got the awards finalists, and we got MVP, Cy Young, Rookie of the Year. We got all those to talk about today here on Back to the Dugout. So we're going to obviously compare all of the candidates here. There's three finalists for every single award, and we're going to pull up their Baseball Savant pages and just kind of compare each of these players, and just kind of give my personal take on who I think is going to win. Although, like I said, I do believe that a lot of these guys, honestly, are a lot of these awards are pretty decided at this point. But gonna pull up the MLB article so we can see when the dates are that these awards will be given out. And as you can see here, the Jackie Robinson Rookie of the Year is given out Monday, November 18th. Manager of the Year, Tuesday, November 19th, which we won't be talking about on the show because I want to focus more on the player awards. The manager to me is just kind of an afterthought, but we'll take a quick look at that at the end of this segment. Cy Young's Wednesday, November 20th, and then the MVP is final at Thursday, November 21st. Final award given out there. But looking at the NL MVP is what we're going to start out with first. So let's just pull out these Baseball Savant pages and go to Shohei Ohtani here first, who is clearly going to win NL MVP. I mean, after what he did this season, I think it would be pretty cruel if he didn't. In 731 plate appearances, he had 134 runs scored, 197 hits, 54 home runs, 59 stolen bases for a slash line of 310, 390, and 646. An OPS there over 1,000. He was about as good as you can be. A historic season that has never been done before. He ranked in the 100th percentile in 4 different categories. You will not see many players do that. I mean, this is just absurd stuff from Shohei Ohtani here. The bat speed was incredible all season. The chase and the squared up rate weren't great, but they were still slightly above average. The walk rate was incredible. He struck out a little bit too much, but still sat right around league average. And he did whiff a lot. So that's a little bit of a negative. But when you're hitting 54 home runs a year, I don't think anybody really cares if you swing and miss a couple times. But that barrel rate, the hard hit rate, I mean, the average exit velo, it's the best in the league. Like, it's just the best in the league. There's really nothing else to say about Ohtani's stats at this point than just MVP. That's what he is. Shohei is really just something special when it comes to what he's able to do at the plate. And when he couldn't pitch, he still did way more at the plate than anybody else in the NL. And I think he really just deserves this award more than anyone else in the National League. I think it's not even close, which is unfortunate because I thought this guy had an incredible season and really was deserving of an award like that. But maybe he can get it next year. Francisco Lindor, a finalist for the NL MVP this season after 689 plate appearances. He scored 107 runs with 169 hits, 33 home runs, 29 stolen bases, slightly missing the 30-30 club, and a 273 average with a 344 on base, 500 slug. Good for an 844 OPS. And looking at his advanced metrics here, not ranking in the 100th percentiles like, Ohtani was in multiple different categories, but he was elite in his own regards in multiple different categories here. As you see, one of the best shortstops in the league. While his arm strength isn't among the best, his range is easily among the best of the best. 16 outs above average there. Above average sprint speed. He squares up the ball above average, way more than a lot of the league. Hard hit rate and barrel rate were both good. he just had really good stuff. He didn't strike out an unbelievable amount, which I feel like some people had issues with Lindor at some point with him striking out, and the walk rate was just above average as well. So he definitely had an MVP caliber season. Just wasn't better than Shohei. And maybe if he stole like 50 bases and hit 50 home runs, he'd have a chance. But that's unfortunately not the case for Francisco Lindor. Any other season, he maybe would have won it. But, this is just Shohei Ohtani's National League now. But moving on to the final MVP finalist here for the National League. And it is a bit of an interesting one. I didn't think this guy was actually going to be given this much love at the end of the season. I'm really glad he did because this is one of my favorite players in baseball, and it's Diamondbacks second baseman Ketel Marte. So just interesting enough to me that a second baseman won, or not won, but is in chance to win the NL MVP. It'd be interesting to me the last time a second baseman actually took home the MVP. So if anybody in the chat's interested to know that and could look it up, that would be awesome. I just can't do that right now. But the hard hit rate was amazing on Ketel. I mean, all the advanced metrics here besides sweet spot were really good. Chase rate, whiff rate, K rate, all slightly above average there. But looking at the basic numbers, a 292 average, 372 on base, 560 slug there, 932 OPS. He might have had a better season than Lindor, arguably. I just think defensively, Lindor was a little bit better. These two are really just neck and neck, I feel like, the whole season. But Shohei will win this one. He's probably going to run away with that, honestly. But no disrespect to these two at all. They had a great season. We're going to get into AL MVP here on Back to the Dugout, but I think I'm going to take a quick break here about midway through the show. So we'll be back to talk more about awards and more offseason news like Juan Soto's updates and just other little news around the league. So I'm going to take a quick 2-minute break, and I will be right back. We're back in the bottom half of the hour here on Back to the Dugout to talk more about the awards finalists here for the MLB season. And I got informed kind of in the break that there's a little bit of technical difficulties on our Twitter end of the stream. It says a lot of the viewers that I have at least are coming through Twitter. So if you're coming from Twitter and you can actually see me, just let me know in the chat or something. So I know the YouTube's working, but as far as Twitter goes, I'm not sure. I don't know if we had something else going on there at the same time or whatnot that kind of screwed up that broadcast. But hopefully everything on every other end's fine. I know YouTube's good, so hopefully Facebook and Twitch don't have any issues there as well. But we got to look at AL MVP here, and it's about the same as I would say the NL is. It's not really a race, but it's still interesting to take a look at what the other finalist seasons looked like. And to start off, we're going to take a look, obviously, at somebody that I know a lot of Yankee fans don't want to talk about right now, but it's Aaron Judge. Because he was unreal this season, and you just look at his metrics here in the percentile rankings, and he was in the 100th for 5 things. So if that doesn't tell you at least just how good Aaron Judge was, I really don't know what will. But looking at his basic stats in 704 plate appearances, almost 200 hits with 180, but 58 home runs, 10 stolen bases, a slash line of 330 or 322, 458, 701 for an 1159 OPS. So he was unreal, better offensive production than Shohei Ohtani, arguably. And when you look at his percentile rankings, I mean, just best of the best in terms of hitters. Hit the ball harder than pretty much anybody in the league. Had an average exit velocity of 96.2, which is just unbelievable strength from this guy. His walk rate, I mean, he was in the 100th percentile for that. So while he's striking out at a 24.3% clip, he's still walking at an almost 20% clip. So amazing stuff there. How will Aaron Judge postseason affect the vote? I don't think it affects the voting at all, really. This is a regular season award. So while some people may look at Aaron Judge's postseason slump as, like this, he's not really an MVP type of thing. You see what he did when the lights were on at its brightest. I mean, you look at what he did over the course of the 162 game season, and this is what he did. He put up some of the best production you will ever see offensively from anybody. And while the postseason obviously wasn't that, I don't think that'll have any effect on whether or not he wins this award. You look at the numbers that the other people posted, and while Bobby Witt's numbers were great, and while Soto's numbers were great, Aaron Judge was on a complete different planet this season, despite a very slow start in April. But that brings me to Juan Soto, who honestly, if Aaron Judge wasn't a baseball player, would have won this award probably. Or maybe Bobby Witt would. I don't know. It would have been close between these two, but I mean, Soto was really, really good this year, and is what could be his only year with the Yankees. He hit 288 with a 419 on base and 988 OPS, 166 hits and 41 home runs. If I'm not wrong, his only time in his career he hit 40 plus home runs. Didn't hit the 10 stolen base mark, but again, he hit more power. He hit for more power with the Yankees than he has really with any other team in his career. And looking at the barrel rate and the hard hit rate, it's not really hard to see why. Ranked nearly among the best of the best, if not the best, for hard hit rate and barrel rate. His average exit velo was not much less than Judge. When you take a look at this guy's size, about 4 or 5 inches shorter and probably almost 50 pounds less than Judge. That's unreal that he's still hitting the ball that hard. In terms of value in the field, it wasn't really there besides his arm strength, which we saw come out a few times, but the walk rate was phenomenal, as it usually is. The plate discipline was just elite, and he would have a really good shot of winning if Judge wasn't a baseball player this season. But I think this next guy probably would have taken the MVP, honestly, if Judge wasn't on the Yankees or a baseball player, as a whole. But that's Bobby Witt Jr. I think that a lot of people were really pushing for Bobby Witt to take this MVP at one point, just because of how fun this player is to watch. This season, in almost 710 at bats, he had 125 runs scored, 211 hits. I believe that led the league. 32 home runs, 31 stolen bases, hitting the 30-30 mark for the second time in his career, I should say, at the 30-40 mark last season. 332 batting average, and near 400 on base, a 588 slug for a 977 OPS. So an elite season from Bobby Witt Jr. Percentile rankings wise, it's not as juicy as what you see from guys like Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, but in the field and running, he's as good as it gets. 100th percentile, 30.5 feet per second on his sprint speed, which is just unreal. Circle the bases in about 12 seconds, pretty much with that math. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I'm not good at math. I've said that multiple times. So if that's not correct, I'm sorry. That's just my math working. But fielding wise, he was amazing. In 99th percentile with 16 outs above average. I can't remember. Was that Francisco? It might have been Francisco Lindor's, but right around the same number as him. So that tells you how elite he was. And then arm strength, above average there as well. So really good stuff from Bobby Witt Jr. this season. Showed that he is just one of the best all around defensive, offensive shortstops that we have in the entire game of baseball, and showed that he is going to be a very special player in this league for an incredibly long time. I think Aaron Judge will run away with this award, obviously, as he should. But Bobby Witt Jr., Juan Soto, incredible seasons. And I really think that, these three are going to be fighting it for AL MVP for a while, especially if Juan Soto stays with the New York Yankees. But we got to get into Cy Young here so we don't at least run out of time on the show. But let's look at Chris Sale real quick from the NL side of things. And this is just a really interesting one because Chris Sale will most likely win the NL Cy Young. 2.38 ERA, 18-3 record, 177.2 innings pitched. A little bit of limiting, but in all honesty, I mean, there's not really anything bad about this guy's season besides the fastball velo being just sitting around average there. But Chris Sale just was one of the most, if not the most elite arm in the NL. You see the arm angle there. I mean, that's just going to be so hard to hit as it is. But his pitching was just so solid this season with a 32.1% strikeout rate. He walked guys at nearly just a 5% clip. Barrel rate was really, really solid. These guys weren't hitting the ball hard against Chris Sale, so he just showed to be probably the most dominant pitcher in the NL, and I think he will take this award. 225 strikeouts, a 1.01 whip. I mean, he was just vintage Chris Sale, and I think this would be his first Cy Young, if I'm not mistaken. I hope I'm not mistaken about that, but if it is his first Cy Young, very well deserved, and he seemed to really find something special here with the Braves. The Braves. So I'm not but I don't think he's going to really be stopping now after this season. I mean, age 35, he's getting up there, but he's still playing at this elite pace. That's something really, really special. So I'm really excited to see hopefully Chris Sale take this Cy Young and what he's able to do next year. But he's going to have it tough because this guy is going to also make his case for the award. Not only this award, but another award as well. Paul Skeens is going to be a very, very talked about name here in the next couple of weeks. And if he doesn't win any award, that might be a little surprising to a lot of people. But my hot take is that he won't walk away with an award in this award season. Obviously, I don't really think the MLB is going to let that happen. But if they were correct in how they wanted to give these awards out, I would really think that better deserving names than Paul Skeens to win these awards, just due to the service time. But let's just talk about his case for Cy Young. 11-3 record, a 1.96 ERA in 23 starts, 133 innings pitched, and a sub-1 whip. So I think that just the 133 innings pitched is ultimately what's going to keep him away from winning the Cy Young. Not enough just innings under his belt compared to guys like Chris Sale, compared to Zach Wheeler even, who doesn't really have a realistic shot of winning over these two guys, but still has more innings pitched. Skeens was great. Strikeout rate was there. I mean, we expected that to be there. The whiff rate you would expect to be a little bit better with the nasty pitches that he has. Same with the chase rate. Average exit velocity. I mean, when you throw the ball as hard as he does and you're a young 22-year-old pitcher, you're going to make mistakes. Not really that surprising to see the exit velocity there. Not really the lowest, but fastball velo, only the 89th percentile for that. He averaged around 97. Still not as high among all qualified pitchers, but this guy will give you a lot more innings with a lot higher velo than a lot of other guys will. So Skeens is a great, great option here for Cy Young for sure next year. But this year, I think that, there's better names, more deserving names. And hopefully Skeens has the chance to take this award in the future. And I think he certainly will. But this season, I just don't think it was his time to win. And it makes it tough because I don't think a lot of people were expecting him to come up and be that dominant and then even be in this situation at this point in his career. So a really, really solid season from Paul Skeens overall. But looking at the last one for the finalist of Cy Young here in the NL, we have Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler, 200 innings pitched, a .96 whip, 2.57 ERA in 32 starts. He was incredible. Chase rate was amazing. The average exit velo was great as well, not really developing hard contact, and the ground ball rate sitting at average, so that's pretty good there. Hard hit rate sitting at 33.6%, so that's pretty solid as well. Carry rate was right around the same. So, I mean, I don't think he'll win Cy Young. The advanced numbers aren't really there compared to a guy like Chris Sale this season, but a really overlooked, just amazing season from Zach Wheeler, a guy that has just been unbelievable for the Phillies the last few seasons, and he will make another case for Cy Young. I'm only assuming, but I think obviously Chris Sale will walk away with this award. But looking at the AL side of things now, we've got to talk about who I think is just going to run away with this one, and it's another lefty, and it's Tariq Skubal. 2.39 ERA and 18-4 record, 31 starts for Skubal and 192 innings pitched, 228 strikeouts and a .92 whip. So just unreal, just baseline numbers there. And then looking at his advanced numbers, the strikeout and whiff numbers were just really there, as you see, sitting in the 90th percentiles there. And in terms of the walk rate, a sub 5% walk rate, which is just unreal. Solid control there. And then he really did his best at trying to get weak in contact. It just wasn't up there with among the best of the best. But again, this guy was easily the best starting pitcher all season. He should walk away with this award for sure. And at 27 years old, this is going to be a really interesting arm to look at for the future to see if he has what it takes to win multiple of these, because I think he really does. And it's going to be interesting to watch this guy's career unfold and watch him take this Cy Young award this season. But yeah, I mean, there's really nothing else to talk about with Skubal. I mean, other than he was just dominant. But looking at other pitchers here out of the AL, we've got a couple options that aren't just really as serious, in my opinion. Seth Lugo is the other option here, and I just don't think this makes any sense. Despite pitching 206 innings and having a 1.09 whip, he had a 3 ERA and 9 losses on the season. So personally, I just don't think that's good enough to get you a AL Cy Young. And then his percentiles were just not good. He was average or below average at everything except 2, 3, 4 things here, and it really wasn't by that much. The walk rate was solid. I will give him that. But, everything else, the underlying metrics don't really look amazing. But he still had an incredible season. So, I mean, maybe you can't look too deep into these numbers, but I always think it's at least interesting to see just when looking at a season as a whole. But Lugo was definitely not as dominant as a guy like Tariq Skubal. So maybe he can have another chance at winning this, but we'll see. Then the last one was interesting enough, a reliever. And I mean, I guess easy to kind of guess who I'm talking about in Emmanuel Clase, who not qualified for fastball velo, sat like among the best with a 100-mile-an-hour average. The whiff and K rate, not the greatest, but everything else was incredible. They're not barreling the ball against him or hitting it very hard. He has a .61 ERA in 74.1 innings pitched. In 74 appearances, a .66 whip. This is the closest thing we have to Mariano Rivera pretty much right now. He's electric to watch every single time he goes out. And, I mean, I just don't see a world where he really wins Cy Young just because he's a closing pitcher. But, I mean, the fact that he's even here is really, really cool. So, if, any other season where Skubal's not doing what he's doing, you maybe have a better case for Clase. But again, I mean, a Cy Young for a closer is just about as tough as it gets for a pitcher trying to win an award. So phenomenal season by Clase. I'm glad we can at least, acknowledge it with a finalist for the Cy Young, but I think that's as far as this goes. Skubal, Sale, they'll be the Cy Youngs. And now looking at Rookie of the Year, we've got Jackson Merrill to look at first from the NL side of things, because I think he's the most deserving for this award. He hit 292 this season with a 326 on base and slugged at a 500 clip, near 830 OPS in his first full season. And looking at his advanced metrics, I mean, his launch angle and sweet spot numbers were honestly really good, sitting in the 94th percentile there. His fielding was really solid as well. While his arm hasn't really fully developed yet, this is a guy who transitioned to the outfield, so the fact that he has 12 outs above average is incredible. And while his arm value isn't the best, the arm strength is for sure there. Sprint speed as well, 28.5 feet per second. That's a really good number there. This is a guy that I think the Padres have just completely fallen in love with. One of the new faces of the franchise, and I couldn't be happier because he is really, really fun to watch. And I'm really excited to watch this 21-year-old perform at hopefully an even higher level next season. But I think he's the most deserving here. We already looked at Paul Skeens, so I'm not going to go back to Skeens, but you guys saw why he obviously deserves to be here. For me, it's just simply more time and more of an impact than the numbers. I think Merrill was really just a way bigger impact to uh, the San Diego Padres than Paul Skeens was to the Pittsburgh Pirates, funny enough. And that's just, that's nothing against Paul Skeens. It's just you're a starting pitcher. You can only pitch, once every week, really. Not really making too much of an impact in the win-loss column. You just don't have many opportunities for it. So I debated all of this in an article that I did, who should win NL Rookie of the Year, Paul Skeens or Jackson Merrill. So if you want to check that out, that's on my profile on bleacherbrothers.com. But we still got Jackson Chourio to talk about. And this is a guy that I think really, if he had a better first half, would be way more in the conversation. But looking at his 2024 season, you can see he had 148 games played, 573 plate appearances, a 275 average, 327 on base, and a WRC plus of 117 with 3.9 wins above replacement. So really solid numbers from him on the season. And that's not the most interesting part, because when you look at his splits here, and we're going to go to his season and monthly splits, you can see right here on my cursor, we've got his batting average from this season at 310 here in the second half. Just absurd production in the second half compared to the first. As you see, he upped his average about like 70 points. And while, it was like 20 less games, he was very, very impactful for them. And he hit 12 home runs in the second half. This is a guy that really found his groove at the plate, and I think that was really only a matter of time. And I think he's going to put together production that we saw the second half at a more consistent clip in 2024 or 2025. I keep doing that, but 2025 we'll see more production out of Jackson Chourio for sure. This is a guy who is, I think, just going to be freshly 21 by the time the next season rolls around. So he's got perfect time to develop, especially at the major league level. And a 310 average in the second half, I mean, as a 20-year-old, I mean, that's I say this a lot, but that is just genuinely generational numbers. We have a handful of these types of players in the league, and I just want to try and shed as much light and as much emphasis on these guys as I can, because they really deserve all the praise in the world for what they did this season. This was one of the most fun rookie seasons I've seen from the NL in just recent memory for me. But I think, while it's really cool to look at Chourio's second half, I think Merrill really just deserves it from just a consistent standpoint. Hitting near 300 in your rookie season after transitioning positions is really, really difficult to do. And he really looked just so much better than he really, I think a lot of people really thought he would have been. Earned his first All-Star appearance as well. I know Paul Skeens started the NL All-Star game, but I think Jackson Merrill just went overlooked for so long that we really need to recognize him with this award. He deserves it. But we're going to wrap up quickly with the AL Rookie of the Year. And, this one's going to be interesting, but we've got Colton Cowser first to talk about. The AL Rookie of the Year never really jumped out of off the paper compared to the NL, but Cowser, 242 average, 321 on base, a 768 OPS. 90th percentile for barrel rate. He was pretty solid in the field with 11 outs above average. I mean, he was really good in the field, honestly. I'm not even going to dance around it. He's really good in the field, besides his arm value being, around average. But average sprint speed, slightly above average sprint speed. The advanced metrics are really good, but I don't know if these numbers here, the baseline ones, are necessarily what is good enough to win him the award. We'll see. I think he definitely could take it, and I honestly I just really don't know. This is one where I think it's a toss-up. I think you could really say any of these guys could go around and win it. A guy that I really hope wins it is somebody who I just think has been through so much and just really deserves it with all that they've done for their franchise and themselves. That's Luis Gil. I think that Hill has just been, maybe a little bit too inconsistent to take this award. We saw in the summer he kind of really struggled. He hit that, dog days of summer period where he was maybe just in too many innings compared to the amount that he's thrown in the past. You can see here on Baseball Savant, he never threw triple-digit innings. So the fact that he threw 151 this season is ridiculous, nearly 152, but a 3.5 ERA, 29 games started after coming off of a pretty long injury hiatus that was like 2 years. So I really think he deserves it for just what he went through. But but I don't know if they're going to give it to him just for that. Again, as a starting pitcher who really struggled with consistency and struggles with control, we'll see. I honestly think that, he has a really good shot, but again, I honestly don't know at this point. I really don't know. Maybe I'll have to make this into a little bit of an article, analyze this like I analyzed Jackson Merrill and Paul Skeens. That could probably be a pretty good idea for some just written content on the side. But, in terms of me being able to give you an educated guess right now, I mean, I would honestly have to go with Gil. I think that what he went through in the past and what he did this season, I think was special enough to earn it. I don't know if a 242 batting average and average production from Colton Cowser is going to be good enough to win Rookie of the Year for the MLB standards. So we'll have to see. I think it's going to go to Luis Gil, honestly, but that's just my hope. Not the best educated guess, but it's a guess. So the last option we have here is Austin Wells, who I think was just not consistent enough. There were times where Austin Wells was really, really solid, and actually, instead of pulling up his Savant page, I want to pull up his splits like we looked at for Jackson Chorio, because there were periods of time this season where Wells was really, really good. You could see 325 average in August and 277 in July, where he hit 9 home runs. But he was a lot better in those 2 months, and I just don't think that really earns it the Rookie of the Year for him. Love Wells. I think he's a really solid player. Obviously, the Yankee fan in me wants to see Austin Wells take home this award, but I think Gil ultimately had a more impactful season than he did. But if you would have asked me in August, I would have thought Wells definitely had a bigger shot. But I mean, that was probably a little bit biased given that he was obviously doing way better at that time. But nonetheless, a very cool thing for Wells to make that list and to just make the finals for Rookie of the Year. But we'll see who ends up winning that. But now taking a look at a quick Juan Soto update before we get into the other news, which we only have 5 minutes, so we won't be doing a lot of it. But this was a tweet from Jeff Passan earlier. As you can see, the Toronto Blue Jays have the first meeting this week with Juan Soto. The Red Sox are next, and then the New York Mets, and then finally the New York Yankees. So as Passan said, the Juan Soto sweepstakes, they're heating up. I think that's really good for the Yankees that they get to meet with him last, in my opinion. They get to bring in Aaron Boone, who I know will be present, and hopefully just give him the full package, why you need to be here. It shouldn't be a whole song and dance. He played a season. He got to the World Series. They nearly won a championship. I mean, they can do it again. And, the Mets are going to offer him probably everything, but sometimes, everything is not everything in terms, money is not everything. I really I don't see how Soto would want to give up this just legacy of being one of the best Yankees of all time to take a little bit more money to play for the Mets. The Mets are like a superstar away from a championship, you could argue, but I just don't know. He has this connection with the Yankee fan base already. We'll see, man. This is going to be interesting. I think the Blue Jays going first is funny. It's kind of like, all right, let's get them out of the way. Just unserious with them and the Boston Red Sox. Like, let's be honest, the Red Sox are not signing Juan Soto. They should sign a pitcher. But then the New York Mets and the Yankees. So it's going to be interesting there, those final 2 meetings. I'm glad that at least in the realm of those meetings, the Yankees have the last one and can at least follow up the New York Mets. But hopefully it's not something where it's going to be too hard to follow up. So just an interesting Juan Soto update there. But now we can just get into a little bit of, I guess, other news. The Arizona Fall League had its Fall Stars game, and that's always a really interesting part of the MLB offseason, because I've been getting a little bit more into the Arizona Fall League, and my Yankees and their prospects actually had a really good outing at the Arizona Fall League this season, and particularly Caleb Durbin, who is a guy that I hope the Yankees can go out and just bring up and have some success on the club. But you could see here in the Fall Stars game, I mean, he was really, really good. 2 for 3, a double, a walk, 2 RBIs, a run, a stolen base. I mean, I'll take that right now. I know Durbin's a really solid player, and he's got an Anthony Volpe kind of style of swing. I would love to see this guy make an impact at the infield in 2025, especially with Glaber leaving. Let's stick this guy at third base, stick him at second base, maybe even see what he can do. I'm willing to roll the dice with somebody who is performing really well right now. And if Caleb Durbin has a really solid spring training, then who knows? We could see him break the big league club maybe. Uh, Familiar faces here in Jack Caglione and Trey Morgan. They both had really solid games in the AFL Fall Stars game. Caglione going 1-for-1 with a double and 2 walks, a run and a stolen base for him as well. And these two actually faced up in the College World Series finals. I believe that was 2023 with Florida and LSU. Trey Morgan, obviously a former LSU Tiger, he went 1-for-2 in this game with a double and a couple of walks as well, a run and a stolen base to pair. But just a really fun game to watch. I mean, Theron Lorenzo with obviously winning the MVP there. Robert Hassel doubled. Zahir Hope looked really I mean, I thought that was going to be a big hit. Apparently, just strikeout swinging. So never mind there. Edwin Arroyo looked pretty good. Just a lot of big name prospects were looking really, really solid here. You see Leo DeVries. All these guys, while some of them weren't making big name plays or big impact plays, they were all here and they were all competing, which is really cool to see. So if you want a little bit of prospect coverage or more prospect coverage, let me know because I would love to do more of that. With the way the league's kind of been right now, we haven't had much to talk about, but that's fine. I mean, prospect content ramps up as the season starts anyway. So really cool stuff out of the Arizona Fall League. A lot of the top prospects in the league going head-to-head in this Fall Stars game. So that was really cool to see highlights of that this weekend. And even cooler for me to see some of the Yankee prospects shine on a bigger stage. So hopefully they get to shine at Yankee Stadium in the near future, but who knows? I mean, Yankees don't really let their prospects shine too much, so we'll see. In other news, the Marlins hired a new manager. They hired the Dodgers' former first base coach, Clayton McCullough, so we'll see how he does there in Miami. Cincinnati showed their love for Pete Rose, going to Great American Ballpark and showing some love to the Hit King one last time. Really cool stuff there. Just seeing thousands of fans turn up to just show their appreciation for just one of the maybe biggest icon of Cincinnati sports history. Just shows just how good this fan base is and just how deserving they are of a championship caliber team. So I hope they really get one soon because Reds fans, they showed out in numbers for this, and it was really honestly, it wasn't like necessarily inspiring to see, but it was just a really cool moment, really, really fun moment to see Reds fans bond and just come together for a moment like this to just remember the greatest player that played for their franchise, and hopefully they can come back all in a bigger crowd and watch them play more meaningful baseball games. But in terms of other news, the only other thing I really wrote down to say was Wander Franco got arrested again. And, I honestly just don't really want to talk about that because that's not really something worth talking about to me. That's not a guy that I think should be on any of our minds anymore. That guy should go get locked up and have the key get thrown away. So not going to talk about really the details with that. Just know Juan Soto not Juan Soto. Why did I say Juan Soto? But Wander Franco. Juan Soto did not get arrested. Wander Franco got arrested again. Just know that. Nothing really else there to talk about besides the fact that he just can't seem to stay out of trouble. And, that's pretty much it for today. Appreciate you guys all watching. I do apologize for the Twitter errors. I'm not really sure what happened there. But in terms of YouTube, hopefully everybody on the YouTube end and the Twitch end and Facebook, if there's anybody viewing on there, could see fine. This will be obviously on YouTube to watch afterwards, but it says we have 70 live viewers, so I appreciate everybody watching. If you're watching the replay, I appreciate it as always. Like I said, I'll be back on Thursday to talk about a little bit more baseball news. Hopefully we know more about maybe Roki Sasaki or Juan Soto, but we'll find other stuff to talk about in that time. Maybe do a themed episode if we can't do anything else, but one day break in between shows this week. I will see you guys on Thursday for another episode of Back to the Dugout. Again, I am Toby Schulman here on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. For myself and the rest of the crew, I will see you guys on Thursday.